Should we share the screen and keep the recording going and just watch all of Revenge of the Sith? And
I'm
I'm
I'm open.
open.
I'm
I'm
open.
open.
I'm super open.
Guys, I'm so glad that we just are so good at doing this twice a week, get those episodes out. We're killing it right now.
Hmm.
Look, we're grinders. It's all about, look, if you're in the content game, my advice to you is just churn out the content. Doesn't even matter if it's good, just make content. If you're not making content, you're not living.
From my experience, I would actually suggest that it not be. I suggest it be dog shit. But
Actually,
get it out there. But get it out.
yes, if I've learned
That's what
anything,
we
the
do. It
quality
doesn't
does
have to be
not.
good. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also don't stress. Our mindset for today's pod is cozy pod. I don't know why
Yes.
Andrew's leaning up. You should be leaning back, man. Just
Well,
get
I was
relaxed.
getting my beverage. But yes,
You
thank
can
you,
see
Ryan.
Joe is got a comfy chair. I am
And my
nice
sister.
and warm in my apartment on a cold summer day in Denver. We're just chilling.
Yeah, Ryan, what's up with that? Why are you wearing a sweatshirt right now?
Well, it's a little chilly out. It's been raining the last couple days, and I just wanted to drink my hot cocoa from my Ring or the mug, which you can get in our store. Link in the bio below. So pop that up. And
Yes.
I just want to be cozy today. So, but
Yeah,
let's
I'm
get
here
into
for
it.
it, man.
We got some flat ball to talk about. A lot of games happen, or sorry, 4 games happening this weekend, but very interesting
Hmm.
games. Uh, Joe, I say you get in, or sorry, before we get into frisbee. Andrew, why are you not at your normal desk? What's going on, man?
Yeah, okay. So the elephant in the room, obviously, if you're a dedicated fan, you become accustomed to my typical Zoom background, and you might be thinking, "Oh, this looks different. This is a little different from Andrew. What's going on? Why are you on your couch?" Well, I'm recording today from my living room. Um, I there's no other really way to put it other than like my podcast setup and my office work setup is at an all-time. I mean, it's in complete shambles right now. Basically, long story short, I think something has died in the walls in my office. It's either died or it's like shit a lot or it's shit a lot and died. It's kind of, we don't really know. um but my office reeks like hell. I cannot be in there. So yeah, we're kind of grinding right now. You know, we're a bit in a back and forth with the landlord. We might open up the wall, see what's in there. But yeah, I'll keep everyone updated on that. And then my headphones are also, they're kaput. I put them on the other day. Crackle Crackle City. The right one is like barely coming through. So yeah. So for a podcast, I mean this it's kind of brutal, but we're battling through for the people. I've got a, maybe an unorthodox setup, but let's see what kind of creativity and hot takes that this brings. I'm excited for today's episode. We got a lot to cover.
Our thoughts and prayers are with you, Andrew, and everybody listening. Please buy our merch so that Andrew can get the dead
Please.
or shitting and also dead animal out of his vents.
We don't know. It's one or the other or both. But yes, please buy our merch
Please buy our merch.
and subscribe.
Yeah, and subscribe. All right, let's get into the frisbee. Joe, I think you should, start this off with just kind of your whole experience. You were at the Boston DC game.
Oh, oh, was I?
How was it?
What a game. Uh, I I had a great time. Um, I will say, biggest crowd I've maybe ever seen at a Breeze game, which I think makes sense because they were hosting the Eastern Conference Finals, and the crowd was into it. The DC hype people were getting everybody excited. The team was just, you could just hear the way they're screaming from the sideline. You could hear Boston's excitement too. I could hear Boston's coaches screaming at the refs. I could hear Babbitt and Merriman, I don't want to say yelling, but like having a conversation with each other about some pushing in the end zone that actually was called against Babbitt. It was called an offensive foul, and they took a goal away from Boston, which I don't know who the other person was who ended up coming with the disc. It might have been Cable. It might have been Johnson Go. I don't remember, but caught it in the end zone, but there was a little bit of shoving coming from like Babbitt, and they took the goal away. But everybody was hype. They ran out of beer in the third quarter.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. And then right at the start of the fourth quarter, the announcers come on and they say, just so everyone knows, we have beer again. And there was a mass exodus towards the concession stand. And I was thankfully, luckily, part of that Hajj to the concessions line, and I have the VIP pass as a season ticket holder, so I get to go to the short line and
Oh,
bypass all the schmucks standing in line. I got to get my beers quicker.
plebeians. Did you
So that was
say?
great.
Did you say "suck it, plebs" as you walked by
That's it.
them?
That is exactly what I said to them. Um, but yeah, I mean, the team played great. You could just tell how important this game was to everybody. Um, I was really impressed by Johnny. I was really impressed by Rowan. Rowan's had like a lot of games where he doesn't show up. He shows up in like, you know, throughout his career in lots of these shitty games and in many like regular season games against great teams. But like, this is our first championship weekend, and like, Rowan's been with the team for a long time, and I thought he played great. I thought the defense played great. I think like probably the biggest difference between DC and Boston in that game was like break percentage. DC just like converted, I want to say like 5 or 6, where Boston converted like 2 or 3. I thought AJ looked great. I thought Luke looked great. Aroy was everywhere. I don't know. The team was really clicking. They looked like a cohesive unit on offense and defense, and Boston looked good too. It was close the whole time.
So I have
Wow.
a couple
That's all I
questions.
got. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. Did it ever feel so I didn't watch the game fully. I checked out some highlights, whatever. Did it feel like Boston was ever like threatening to win it, or did it kind of feel like DC took an early lead and then did it feel comfortable? Did it feel kind of uncomfy at times? Like what was
It
kind of the
it
vibe
felt
there?
uncomfortable. I think like the entire time. I
Yeah.
To me it felt like DC looked like the better team, and they would get a break and you're like, wow, they're playing so well. You look at the scoreboard and they just took it from a 1 point lead to a 2 point lead. And then Boston would go back and score right after that, bring it back to 1. I thought Orion Cable played great. Um, I also thought Johnson Go was taller than I expected, and he also looked good. I mean, Babbitt is Babbitt. You know,
Well,
he's a bum. So, you know,
Too small. Too
after
small in the
after
rivalries.
after the game, DC always goes down and gives high fives to the people standing next to the sideline. And then usually the other team will like go after and be like, thanks for coming out, making this a good crowd or whatever. And Boston did that, and they were very nice about it. And then Babbitt didn't do that. Babbitt did not do the high five line.
wow.
I know. He big timed us.
Wow. Well, okay, so my follow-up question um is I guess I kind of have I'm wondering a lot of things, and maybe we can save some of this for we'll kind of try to preview championship weekend a little bit today, but does it feel like with the course of this whole season, does it feel like DC is kind of like clicking right now, like they come together at the right time? Or does it, they dropped the first game of the season, but that was to Salt Lake,
Mm-hmm.
who, we'll talk about them later. But yeah, I don't know. It feels to me like it's just kind of coming together at just the right time, and that's kind of in other sports, that's kind of what bodes well in the playoffs and stuff like that. Like you get hot at just the right time. Like Does it feel that way for DC, like compared to kind of just the way their season's been going?
I think so. I mean, I think like this being hot probably started like midway through the season when it
Right.
feels like the team really started clicking. Like I def like during the first half of the season, maybe like the first like 4 or 5 games, there were definitely some legitimate criticisms you could give, even though they only had like one loss.
Mm-hmm.
They've looked like a good team, but even in previous years, they've looked like great teams, but they still make these like dumb decisions or they're not aggressive enough and they just try to do these little dinky passes, which works great for truck stop, but like just means you have to play a perfect game in the AUDL, and that doesn't always happen against like
Right.
the Empire of yore. Uh, but now it feels like they're smarter. They're making high percentage passes, but they're also going for their like bigger hucks that are landing more often than they did. I think last year, like they were like second to last in hucks when like 6 or 7 games through the year. So yeah, no, I feel like they're clicking at the right time. And there were very few possessions during the game yesterday where I was like, what are we doing? Like what was that? What was that decision? Like even the D line going for a huck, like it it always looked like a good call, which I can't say I felt every time the D line was hucking it like last year.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
exciting. They're exciting.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like the Breeze have finally like climbed out of the Empire's like little brother shadow that they've had in the last like 3, 4 years. And by making championship weekend, like I feel like the first time we started this podcast, Joe, you were always like saying like I feel like Breeze is the second best team in the league, and they've been the second best team in the East this whole time. So it's kind of exciting to see them turn a corner, and I think it's pretty clear like it's their championship to lose. Like they are clearly the favorite out of the 4 teams right now. So it's going to be exciting. What I think they play Madison to start, or not Madison.
No.
Was it
Winchell.
Minnesota or yeah?
Yeah.
So that'll
First
be a
time
good
they've
game.
ever played each other.
Yeah.
What?
Also, I
Yeah.
just like in the grand scheme of things for this league, like it's kind of cool to see how much parity we had this year. Like we're gonna get to it. We could probably get to it now if we want, but like Salt Lake losing like crazy, um, seeing Atlanta go down. Like we all had Atlanta as like the top dog this year, and then they just go down. It's kind of a fun time to be a UFA fan, I would say.
I can't believe the Tempest. We didn't have to watch them win a championship this year, and now we just have the Cascades going to championship weekend. I can't get rid of Seattle.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Should we get on to
Seattle.
that game?
Well, okay.
Yeah, let's
I
talk.
do want to follow up on a couple things that you said, Ryan.
Yeah.
Um, so on one hand, I think it's interesting because this year we've gotten the parity that I think we've been kind of craving after the past 2 years of, the bad men empire just kind of bullying everybody and just dominating the league. Um and I think too much of that is definitely bad. And I think people are getting kind of tired of it. But at the same time, I think that kind of draws people in because you're like, oh, like, who's going to get them? Like, when are they going to lose? And like, you're a lot more like locked into that versus like the Empire. I don't know, there was more parity, but it also just felt like sometimes it's good to have like that heel team that everyone's rooting against and you can't look away. Everyone's tuning in to see if anyone can beat them and no one does. You know, something about that or like, I and I kind of I hear people say this about like talking about like the Warriors dynasty, and like I think that was ultimately like good for the NBA because even though it was kind of boring, it's like I think dynasties are still good for sports.
Yeah.
Um, but you can't have too much of it. Like there has to be a balance, and maybe this year's kind of that time to correct that and everything. The one other thing I wanted to say was I'm I'm a DC sports fan. I'm very happy that the Breeze made it to championship weekend finally. Is this their first champion? This is their first championship weekend? Is that
So said um the stream, I think.
yeah, it part of it sometimes like just take what you get, like it's hard. That's the other thing. It's like it's hard to sustain a dynasty, because like some of this play, like I think it's all part of it. Like you could say like, oh, the Empire weren't good just because Oscar wasn't there, and just because Babbitt left, and it's like, well, you know what? Like it's hard to like sustain that for so many years. Like maybe Oscar got a little burnt out because like of how much it took to like win for so long, and then just like it's just hard to like keep that core together for so long and be that successful. So there is that part of it, but at the same time, it does feel to me a little bit anticlimactic because I was kind of like, oh my god, like you got to beat the boogeyman and get over the hump, and then they'll make championship weekend. And like the script that I had in my head kind of didn't really play out the way I thought it would.
Mhm.
Instead they beat Boston to get to championship weekend, which I never thought would have been like the roadblock for them per se. And then
Yeah.
the team that they lost to in the first game of the season, and then finally that maybe they can have their comeuppance in the championship game and beat Salt Lake for the win. That other type of script that also isn't going to happen. So it feels kind of like you take what you can get, like that, and that's sports. And sometimes like the planets have to align in the right way for your window to come together. But like, yeah, there is a part of me that's a little bit I don't know, it just didn't play out the way like DC making championship weekend didn't happen the way I thought it would. And I'm glad it
Mhm.
happened, but it definitely it's kind of a funny feeling for me a little bit as
I hear that.
um
I mean,
I'm stoked
at
though.
at
Don't get me wrong.
least
I'm
at
stoked.
least
I'm stoked for
we
the
beat
players and everybody.
the Breeze beat the Empire in the final game of the season to take first place in the East, which is, I think, as good as we can hope for if we're not going to get that playoff victory over them.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that just brought up some thoughts that I had about I did want to kind of bring that up, but yeah, we got other games to talk about too. Like
Big one.
yeah, should we go to the big one?
We've been hitting
Yeah.
at it already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bad men in Utah who don't want to play on Sundays aren't playing at their own place for championship weekend. That's the
What a
narrative.
game. What a game. I mean,
I mean, utter shock.
unbelievable.
I think Seattle kind of came out of nowhere this year, and even though they were winning games, we were like not really taking them
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
And then, man, we all have to send a written apology to Ryan Anderson because he kind of was the first
Yeah.
person to be
Yeah.
like, like I don't know, something about Seattle, like they're good, and we should definitely like clip that and put that out, like, because he was right, and I don't think I wasn't really with it. I didn't really. I mean, the West. It was kind of hard to read the tea leaves with the West, because it was
Yeah.
just like, oh, they beat the
Absolutely.
Spiders, and they. But what a shock! I think was Salt Lake the consensus like best team in the league until now.
Something
I don't
happened like a month ago, and they just don't look like the same team they did.
Yeah, I mean, when they got their asses handed to them by New York, I was like, oh, this is different. Because even last year, the game was kind of close. Like, it was like a 3-point game going into or like when it ended. And like, didn't they get like clapped by like over 6 this year to New York?
I'm not gonna pretend like I know the exact number, but it was not a close game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, New
No.
York. Yeah, New York, who didn't even make the conference finals.
Yeah, I
Oof.
mean, I don't think we had a going into the playoffs. I don't think we had a consensus best team. I think if you asked me who I thought the best team was, I'd probably either say DC, weirdly like Atlanta, like even them, I thought they were playing really well. But I mean, that's another game that we got to talk about. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it was like the top teams are pretty even, but I really thought that Salt Lake was going to take care of business against Seattle. Like I thought playoffs come, they know how to play their game. I've seen them play a very Salt Lake like style of offense and defense and just like take over games. And that's not what happened. Seattle played it kind of to perfection, kept the score low, like just punched in their chances well, made Salt Lake like turn it over and yeah. Also, can we talk about like the very last like point or two? Like,
Mhm.
what was it? The guy threw a hammer with like 1 second to go right into the dirt. I mean, at that point, like you got to throw it. I saw there was a blade opportunity. Like, you at least got to throw something in the end zone for a potential score, right? Like, what was he doing?
I mean, I don't think he was purposefully trying to throw that hammer into the dirt, but I mean, I agree. You got to put something in, you got to get it something lofty and give people a chance, especially because that
Yeah,
far side of the end zone was like potentially a 2-on-1 for the shred at the end of the game.
yeah.
But it sucks. I mean, yeah, it's hard to think about that when you have like 5 seconds left and your first two opportunities don't come through, and now you're like, oh my God, if I don't get this off, that's
That's our season.
probably that's I mean, that's definitely worse than like turfing a hammer. At least you get it off. There's some kind of chance it's gonna like float. Also,
I
it seemed like it was a pretty windy game. I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed windy. I mean, also I think you have to give a little credit to Seattle there for like whatever their game plan was at that point in the game. I think part of the reason why the hammer was kind of the option was because it was like a really good double team in the moment, which is like a really aggressive um type of strategy to employ when a team is like on the end zone, like you're leaving someone open and like they're that close to scoring. But like I think that's really smart because I can't remember where I heard this, but I just think like in general, you're in way better position if you're in the middle of the field. Like you have a better chance of scoring if you're like I don't want to. Maybe it's not like midfield on an AUDL field, but like if you're in midfield, but like 30 yards back versus
Mhm.
like at the front cone, like it's almost better to be in the midfield position, even if you're further back. So like if you can
Yeah.
like put a really good double team on, like get it, trap him in the corner, put a double team on, and just like have him chuck up something, like that's good. I think that's good defense. So I don't know.
I
It's
I
good to
do
and
yeah, I agree. And I want to shout out Seattle's defense generally for the whole game. It looked good. It looked like Salt Lake just could not get the first option that they wanted, and they were like fucking up a lot of their reset throws that were being forced just because the handling defense was looking pretty nice.
Yeah. I think they're not used to like they have such good flow, and then if that gets kind of disrupted, maybe they feel kind of uncomfortable, and then they're not, yeah, that just kind of throws them off a little bit. Maybe a little bit of that was going on. But yeah, I mean, I think this is all, as much as it's like, oh, Salt Lake lost. Like, I mean, Seattle won this game. They had to do everything right. They had to believe in themselves. I think it's so easy. Like vibes are so important in frisbee, and if you believe that you can win and you have confidence, that goes such a long way. And I saw some quotes from, I want to say Lucas Ambrose. I'm not um, positive. I don't want to misquote, but I think he said something about like, yeah, like I know we lost to them earlier, but we saw some chinks in the armor and they're beatable and we can do this. And I don't think anyone else thought that, but they did, and that's all that mattered.
Yeah.
And props to them. I mean, that is cool, and this is the type of parody that's like exciting and fun, is like an upset like this, which
Yeah.
I think is good for the sport. But how do you guys think they choose? I feel like they must choose the venue based on like, okay, we're banking on this team making championship weekend. We're gonna sell some tickets, and then hasn't worked out. So maybe that's not good for the league per se, but who
Yeah, I was
knows?
wondering if attendance is going to be worse now. It has to be.
It's gotta be worse. It can't be a good thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I remember. Oh, we can say this because Steve Hall's not the commissioner anymore. But I remember last year we were at the semifinal, and it was the first game was New York Austin,
Mhm.
and I thought, I mean, we're just like dicking around on the field. The game's like about to start, and we're like not even supposed to be there. But I turned to Steve Hall and I'm like, wow, this looks great, man. Like I just wanted to say something to him to be like, hey, man, this is awesome. Like thanks for having us. And I was like, yeah, this crowd is like awesome. He's like, wait till the next game because like it's a Minnesota. The Minnesota fans are gonna show
Hmm.
out. It's gonna get even better. And I was like, okay, cool. So it's like they know they need that home team like kind of bump. Um, and yeah, I don't think that's
I don't think
Yeah,
the
yeah.
commissioners who is Steve Hall still it, or did Tim DeBile take over already?
I think Steve Hall's out. Am I wrong?
I kind of
I
think you're
know,
right. I kind of
I
think
know.
you're right.
Okay, I didn't know if Tim DeBile was taking over after this season or if he took out. To be honest, I don't really
I
know.
kind of think he took over, but I'm not positive about that.
Yeah, but whatevs. Yeah, maybe it's not exactly what the league would have wanted, but it's cool. I think the storyline's awesome, and I'm
Yeah,
excited to see what they'll do. I mean, I don't know how far they'll go, but if they can beat Salt Lake, like they can beat anybody, honestly.
they can. They play Carolina, tough, but yeah, I mean, they just beat Salt Lake, so
Should
they
we
can
talk
They
do
about
got
it.
that
Lucas
game?
Ambrose. They could do anything.
Man,
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, and
shout out
Ambrose is cracked.
Lucas
He's cracked.
Ambrose.
Ambrose,
Oh my God, that dude just wins.
He's just a
straight
That
up
winner.
dude
winner.
just wins.
He
Khalif
looks
had a
like
great game too, but oh my
Dude,
God, Ambrose just
the hand
wins.
block on Twitter
Yeah,
I saw, like that's so nasty. Just Also, Garrett Martin tweeted like a video. He threw a huck to I think Zepp, and he was like, "Love Zepp" or whatever because Zepp scored. I commented, I was like, "Dude, this throw is fucking nasty." He has a flat mark and he like shimmies, throws like a 70-yard flick huck. Zepp's got two defenders on his back, and it's like perfect. So gets there and then floats and he catches. I'm just like, I would love to be able to do that. Fucking throw a rope with a defender right in my face.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Shout out
think the
that throw.
Grant Martin being on that team,
Grant
like I think
Martin?
yeah, Grant Martin. Is that
Garrett,
not his name?
Either
Garrett
Garrett
Martin.
Martin or Grant
Grant
Lindsley.
Lindsley.
I
You gotta pick one
combined
of
them.
them.
I combined them. I was thinking about Grant Lindsley. Yeah, Garrett Martin was like last year, I remember that was a conversation preseason, like, oh, they picked up Garrett Martin. Like this could be, I don't know, maybe Salt Lake or maybe Seattle's gonna who knows? And like it didn't work out last year, but like he's still on the team and that wound up paying dividends for them.
Except for the drop he had in the end zone, which also Jaime had a drop in the end zone too. But I do believe that with that one they got the disc back and scored anyway.
Yeah, I just think also just like the overall like leadership and like having a guy like him
I
who's
agree.
been like a
I
proven, you know,
Winner.
winner, total like stud, that's important. And I think we kind of forgot about that because it
mhm.
didn't really work out for them last year. And same goes with Khalif too, obviously.
I
Um,
mean, we need to at some point talk about just like the impact that single players make on teams. Like Seattle 2 years ago was in the same talks as Portland, Detroit, Dallas, and then
They
I
went
don't know if
two
they
and eight.
added. Yeah, I don't know if they like really added like anyone else, but like adding Khalif last year, adding Garrett, and then Lucas this year, like it's crazy to me. Like there could be more, but like it seems like they added 2 to 3 players and they went from the worst team in the league to they just beat Salt Lake in a playoff game.
I think a lot of that has to do with their players actually going to away games this year.
yeah.
Fair.
Honestly,
No,
I think they probably could have been good last year if all of their players had played in all of their games.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's not like what's the word? Like it's the benefits that you get from having people travel to your games in the UFA, or from what I've seen, it feels like it's more than just, oh, we got that one win. I think it pays off even more, um, just overall, just having a consistent team and a consistent
Mhm.
roster and getting the chemistry built up throughout the season is just so important. And so it's not just like, oh, these great players are here, but it's like these great players are here and they've been playing with each other, and that like is greater than the sum of its parts, kind of like it's just so important.
Yeah.
Um,
I
And
I the reason I was trying to make that point, emphasizing on that, is just I feel like I see it across the league. Like I could just go by team. Aviators, add Pavel year one, beat Colorado in the playoffs.
yeah.
Colorado, Nethercutt didn't play a single like I saw Nethercutt at US Open and like we were joking about like I was going to a bunch of Summit games and he was like, "Yeah, they just kind of used me for marketing this year because he didn't like play any home games this
Mhm.
year." And they didn't even make the playoffs. Like they're
Yeah.
ass.
Yeah.
Boston adding Jeff Babbitt and they're just freaking a playoff team beating New York this year. New York losing Oscar and losing Jeff Babbitt, and they went from winning 2 seasons or not losing a game 2 seasons in a row to now they're not in the like they didn't make the East Finals. So I just think like I've seen that theme where like 1 to 2 players like it's just in a game where you have 14 starting players, like it seems like 1 or 2 people can really make a huge difference in ultimate.
Yeah. That's totally true. It's very basketball-esque in that sense.
Mm.
Which is even crazier because there's more people, so you would think that like I
Yeah.
guess it's just two more players at a given time. So yeah, I mean it does make sense that that would like I think we haven't been giving that enough credit like when we do our predictions before the season and stuff like how much this one player coming or going will change the team's outlook like
Or even just
but
like
yeah
missing a key game, you know?
yeah but yeah
Mhm.
I think we need to start like factoring that in a lot more which is hard because like the rosters change like every week it's hard to
Yeah.
keep up
Yeah.
but yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Next game. Should we talk about the other interesting one down in the South?
Yeah, let's talk
Oh
that game.
yeah.
So Carolina, Atlanta. I watched. I started, I think, in the second quarter or the third quarter. And it was just close, and it was a battle the whole way. Um, I think I picked Atlanta in the spread, and I was rooting for them, and then I immediately realized I'm gonna fucking go over 4 this week. But that game was awesome. Like huge, great D's, like. Who had that throw? Not Austin Taylor, but who's the other handler on Atlanta? Um,
Bobby Lay.
Bobby Lay. Bobby Lay had a backhand and they worked it up the field. They were being really cautious. I think it was already a point where there was a turn or so, and like Atlanta was being really careful. And then he throws this like 40-yard backhand to the back corner of the end zone where I was like, oh, this is either going out of bounds or it's gonna get D'd. And it was just perfect. And I was like, the balls to throw that, but then also to execute it. Like I wish I had that throw in my bag.
Yeah. He also had kind of a questionable throw kind of in crunch time towards the end. So I watched the end of the game.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, Atlanta looked a little just kind of caught off guard and like just Carolina just didn't go away. They just like the original bad man of Ultimate is back.
They're
You
back.
know, they never,
Bad man's
you know,
back.
they really never left fully, but they're very much back, and they scare me a lot. And I don't know what that means for championship weekend, but I really think, like you said, it's DC's to lose, but like I don't know. I think Carolina thinks that like they're the last time the DC and Carolina met. Wait, no, wait. Wasn't DC was DC not at champ? DC hosted championship weekend that Carolina won. The last time
Over
they
in New York,
won,
though.
they beat New York, but it was hosted by DC, but DC
Yeah.
wasn't there.
Yeah.
Okay. But still they kind of just took a shit on DC just
Yeah.
by winning on their turf, you know. So,
Yeah. But then they also played twice the season after, or 2 seasons ago. And then they played also once this year. DC's 2-1 against them in those 3 games.
yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like they playoff Carolina just like
Oh,
scares
yeah.
me a lot. It scares me a lot. Um yeah, I think Austin Taylor's a dog. He had a crazy like bid to keep something alive, and like his throws are always so good. I think he's just such an underrated player. Like I know Atlanta lost, but yeah, that is one takeaway I had from watching it. Like that dude is like the soul of that offense, and has been for years.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, shout out to him. Um, It was good to see AD out there too. That was another thing
I
I
would.
was
That is exactly what I was gonna say. It was really nice to see him out there.
Yeah.
yeah. Like it was like it just kind of was just this weird thing like during nationals was it like last year it was like oh by the way like I tore my ACL and I was like what
Yeah.
like that
I think it was
sucks and
he tore
then
his Achilles.
there's Achilles yeah one something in his leg was fucked up and it was just kind of like out of nowhere um and you were like man this is awful um and so yeah it was cool to see him out there like you know as much as we're tired of seeing Carolina, you know, from like dark side and stuff and like always winning in college and stuff, it kind of makes me not want to root for Carolina always,
Hmm.
but like all those guys are so nice and yeah, it made me happy to see AD back out there and they just play good frisbee. Like
Yeah,
they just run a really tight ship. They're all really talented. They're all really cerebral. They're a scary team and they just
Durs had a great game too.
Durs went off. Yeah, he's a menace. Um, probably the quickest first step in the league potentially. Like that dude can just get open in the handler space like nothing. Um,
Fairfax can catch a disc.
Fairfax is a total freak. They're a scary team, man. I'm scared. I'm
I
scared. I
know.
think they're gonna. I don't know. I could see if they took it all this year, I would not be surprised.
What do you guys think the Seattle Carolina game is going to be like? Do you think Carolina's going to mop them, or do you think Seattle is going to contend?
I think Seattle is a type of team that Carolina has not played like in a long time, I guess. Carolina plays the Hustle, who are just a good team. They play the Soul, who are like chaotic but good, but also not that good. And then they play dog shit. That's all they play ever. Seattle is like a whole different type of ultimate than that. If Seattle doesn't play well, like yeah, they'll get mopped, but I think they're gonna come in, they're gonna do their thing, they're gonna play good defense, they're gonna throw up a lot of shots and like I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be a super high scoring game because I think both teams have pretty solid defenses. And I think both teams can be a little sloppy. But no, I think it's gonna be close.
It's funny because like in terms of the UFA recent history, it's kind of like underdog versus like you know Carolina, but like these are blue blood ultimate cities. Like
Hmm.
if you told me it was like
That's so
sockeye
true.
and ring, it would be like, oh, you know,
Yeah,
boring,
that's
you
so
know, or like,
true.
you know, oh yeah, of course these two teams are in the semis or, you know,
You
um
know, it's funny you say that because I literally just pulled up Cody Mills's frisbee rankings because I wanted to see like as the club season's going on, how does this compare to our championship weekend? And Truck Stop is number one, which is no surprise. They've kind of been number one for the last. I mean, they won it last year. Um, and then Ring is currently three, which is crazy to me because they had an early exodus at U.S. Open when they lost to Machine. But when the next team for this is Sockeye, they're at 11th, which is kind of interesting to be 11th and make, championship weekend. But then funny enough, you got Sub-Zero down at 17. So
Wow.
I think it kind of leans into the fact that like, when you're talking about Midwest teams, Sub-Zero is probably the highest out of, actually no, sorry,
Y-
Chicago Machine.
Yeah,
They're number
Machine's gotta
two.
be.
They're number two up there. So it's kind of surprising that there's just not a lot of cross between Machine and Union.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy how many players on Machine play for like totally different cities.
yeah, like Xavier Payne on Indy and some other people too. So
right.
Pavel.
Keegan North. Yeah.
Does Kerr still play Machine?
No, Kerr is currently a free agent who he knows what team he should play for. That's a conversation between him and I. I'll keep it at that.
Truck stop.
But I wanted to share my screen because I thought this was kind of cool. I was looking at the color scheme for championship weekend, and like there's two things I noticed. One, we've got two red and blue teams that are like,
Mm.
potentially playing each other. But then also we have two solid blue teams Minnesota's kind of like black and blue, but like, two solid blue teams that are potentially playing each other. And then all four teams have blue in their jerseys and
Uh,
logos. And I don't think like they did it because of that. I think this background here, like because the shred's kind of blue, like this was always going to be like the color scheme for championship weekend was blue. So it's just kind of interesting that all shaked out that, that's the color scheme for champ weekend and all four teams, blue is like one of their primary colors ish.
we should run an analysis on the successful colors of the AUDL. Oh fuck, the UFA. Fuck.
Add it to the
I will
counter.
say though, now that I think about it, like a lot of teams actually have blue in their
Yeah.
color. Like Colorado's got a little hint of blue. Even DC, like now that I think about it, honestly, blue's not their color. Like it's just half of their logo, but like they don't have a blue jersey. So I take it back, kind of.
They got the blue shorts though.
But yeah, I guess that's true.
They got the blue shorts though.
They got the blue shorts. Um,
Are we just gonna completely disrespect Madison's Cinderella season and just go on to the previews?
Congratulations to Madison.
I mean,
They
we
had a
had
great Cinderella season.
was it a Cinderella season? We had a central tier like for most of the season, so like technically they're all even anyways. So it doesn't matter.
um,
They had
this
a
is
way
also this
better
is a
year than
win.
last year.
And
So
who predicted
congratulations.
that at the start of the season?
You? Was it you?
Correct.
I think it was you.
Yeah, if we go back
I
to
just
the
want to
tape
point
chart,
out, I just want to point out that last year I was a Madison proponent that they weren't as bad as their record. But I can't claim that
But
I've
they were
been
bad
very
though.
they weren't that bad.
But we
They
don't
weren't
know
that
that. We'll
bad.
never know. We'll never know
Yeah, you're right.
because this year is
You're right.
different than last year. But I was right this year. I said they'd be good and they were.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
um yeah, no. I mean, yeah, you're I agree. Like they had lost a lot of 1 point games last year, was it? Like and
It's
they
like
were kind of a
three
young
1 point
team.
games.
They got
Yeah.
KPS back. So it just kind of felt like um
Gutowski.
it felt like maybe like it was like it kind of like they weren't that bad, so it like regressed to the mean a little bit, and then they had
Yeah.
KPS. So then like I think that was kind of my thought process on that. Um and it wound up being right. And I totally could see them making the playoffs. And not only did they make the playoffs, but they were in the game to go to chip weekend. They ran into Minnesota. Minnesota's always good. They're always there. Like we're always like, oh, the central tier, blah blah. But like Minnesota comes out on top. Like they just do. Um, at least like recently. So I don't know too much about like I mean how like Abe Coffin's not there anymore.
They still have like Dylan DeClerc and Josh Klein and
Yeah, dude.
like Bevon.
Yeah, like
Uh,
they just have the same guys that just go out there and they just figure it out and they make chip weekend. And man, I mean, I don't know. DC's a tough opponent for them, but they've never played it. That's crazy that they never played because of the
I know.
I mean, like DC just like gutted their roster like a year. They
I
took A
know.
Roy and who else
and
who else went?
and Cole Jurek.
Yeah, Jurek. They I mean, so I guess like revenge game for Minnesota. Like you took our good players. Like I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be a good game. I think Minnesota always does a little bit better than you think. Like when the lights are on and it matters the most. Those guys like they're frisbee freaks. Like they'll just come out and play out of their minds, and it'll be a tough game.
It'll be a great game.
all right,
I
all
think
right,
DC is going to win that game.
all right. Cut
Okay.
back into now. Boom. Let's preview the
And
games.
and I think DC is going to win that game. Now let's go to the other game of championship weekend.
So
Yeah,
Seattle
Carolina,
takes on
Seattle.
Carolina. We did kind of touch on this earlier. I was just asking like if you think Carolina is going to dog walk them or if Seattle's going to keep it close. And I think what Joe you said Carolina hasn't played a team like Seattle yet. I see it being very similar to like Salt Lake where it's going to be like 16-17. But Carolina might be that 17. I actually I don't know the line on it yet. I need to sit on it for about a week or so, but it's definitely not going to be more than 2.5. I can tell you that.
Oh, speaking of lines, we haven't gone over the final standings yet. I'm open.
I'm open.
I'm open.
Eat your veggies.
I'm open.
I'm open.
I'm open.
Oh, can you get your cat to say I'm open?
Batman, say I'm open.